Welcome back to the third rail. My name is John Teeter. I've got my friend with me today, the insane one. And today we're going to be talking about left and right, why these political labels don't really mean anything anymore. They used to mean something. Left and right, there's a long history about them. It started back in the French Revolution, and it had to do with the seating at the table. The people who sat to the left of the table at the political during the revolution, they were the revolutionaries, the reactionaries. They were against the crown, against the religion, and the people who sat to the right of the table were for the crown and for religion and for traditional values. And over time, that has changed. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, I'm Insane One, friend of John's for quite a few years, and just here to add some of my insight and opinion on the situation. And the left and the right, going through and seeing that coming from as early as the French Revolution, off with their heads, kind of crazy. That the people that sat on one side of the table, they were trying to urge the queen or the king to go one way, and the people that sat at the other side of them were wanting to push them in their direction. I would imagine they didn't mix too well in the late 1700s.
Yeah, definitely not. They fought a revolutionary war, and unfortunately, it kind of almost seems like we're going that way in our country. So that's probably not good, except nowadays, my personal opinion, left and right don't really have any meaning. When this country first founded, there weren't political parties. Then eventually, it started after the first president, Washington. Jefferson formed the Democratic Republican Party, which eventually became the Democrats. They were more classical liberal types, kind of government stay off your back. The government should do some things for the good of the country, but for the most part, pretty libertarian, more for states' rights. And eventually the Republican Party was founded with Lincoln. They say it was to abolish the slaves. That wasn't the original purpose of founding the party, but it kind of became known for that because that's what they did. But they were, it all stemmed kind of like from the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, like the people who wanted the federal government to have more power versus the people who wanted the states to have more power. And it's kind of evolved in a lot of ways to, the Democrats will always say there was a big switch between the parties. Like the Democrats were the racists and then the Republicans became the racists somehow. But that's not really the case. But there was a switch in ideology as far as like states' rights versus federal rights, where now the Republicans are kind of more like, no, the states should have their own say on things. And the Democrats want to centralize power to the federal government and ultimately to the global government is what it seems like they're really pushing, because they're definitely for interventionism all over the, with the Ukraine, with Israel, with everything, Palestine. The Democrats are on both sides of that one, kind of, but they're definitely pushing for more U.S. interventionism, whereas the Republicans are not. They're kind of like, hey, we want to stick to our lane, stay in our country, make America great, and each state should have its own say in how things are run.
Well, I was, taking it back to the foundation of our country. I read a book a couple months back, and it was all about the Revolutionary War. It was specifically concentrating on the last winter, December, January, when the war was really won during the Revolutionary War. When not when it officially ended, but when it was won. When the English, they hired they hired mercenaries to come fight us. That's one thing a lot of people don't know, was the English hired mercenaries, Germans, these badass Germans that like live to kill people. That's what they did. They got picked up as armies for different countries at the time. But at any rate, taking it back to the government, the British government already had their style of government pretty much impregnated into what we were doing here. And that's a lot like what we see at Congress. We have a circle type meeting of people on both sides, the left and the right, talking about, decisions and making decisions. So we did take that over from Europe, from England over to here in the beginning. The Whig Party I found was very interesting on how that tied into everything as well.
What do you know about the Whig Party? Because that's actually I know that they were the other first party. I think Adams founded them. I can't remember which Adams, so I'd be lying if I told you. But I don't know much about them. Do you know anything?
I don't have enough to come off and sound well educated on the Whig Party. I know it was an offshoot of, I want to say it was an offshoot of the Democratic Party, but I can't tell you at this time exactly how it took place. But it was like, it was the beginning part of, the Whig Party was part of the English Party back in the day. And they didn't like that ideology. And then they came up with this like Democratic Whig Party, which turned into Republicans or something along those lines. So it was like a 2-year span. And again, like you were saying, there was a lot of fights between these presidents and backstabbing, and between Jefferson was in there in the mix, and then all of those, everybody that's on a dollar bill basically was doing something to other people and pissing off people to great extent. And they had such a small audience to contend with. When you look at the people that voted, what'd you get? Like 12 million people voted for one party member or whatever. That's how many people are out there. There's a lot of people that just don't give a shit. Well, even at that time, there wasn't a lot of people to really go to a polling place and go vote. So you didn't have these large numbers. So if they could sway 10,000 people, they were doing pretty damn good, and stand on that soapbox and kick it around.
Well, back in the day, also, if you didn't own property, you couldn't vote, which I don't know if I'm that far as far as I definitely think we allow too many people to vote. I think if you don't really, at the very least, at the end of the year, if you don't end up owing the government money in taxes or not getting your full amount back, I don't think you should have a right to say how other people's taxes get spent. That's kind of one of my far views, but
I guess in a way, it's another book I read, Robert Heinlein. What's the one where you kill the bugs? They go over to the other planet and kill the bugs.
Are you talking about the they made it into a movie, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a great movie too. It's the director from RoboCop. They have a lot of that like crazy like 80s style propaganda videos in the movie.
Was it Space Troopers?
Yes, Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers, yeah.
Such a great movie.
So, but if the whole reason why anybody got into the military there in Starship Troopers was so they could become a citizen. And I am fully for that. I remember when I was a kid, a lot of the Germans we had foreign exchange students, and the Germans would say, hey, we got to do 2 years in either volunteering as a public servant, or you have to go to military. It was like a thing that they had to do in Germany after high school. And I think if you wanted to be a citizen, you have to be a citizen, be a functional member of society, whether paying taxes, paying your dues through going through the military, even like they do, like a 2-year public servant wouldn't be a bad idea, just to give back and to make active members in the community. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I don't think that would necessarily be a bad idea. Service guarantees citizenship. That was the phrase from the movie. I'm sure it was in the book as well. I think that we have lost our national pride, our national sense of unity. And I think that we just let everyone vote. most people are 1,000% uninformed. Even if they're not uninformed, they're not really. Back in the day when they had it that you had to be a property owner, the reason for that was you had to have a stake in, you had to have skin in the game in order to vote, to decide what our future of this country should be. And yeah, I think that we're losing a lot of that. Like, most people don't care. They just vote for whoever's going to give them the most free stuff, or whoever they think is going to further their own interest and not really care about the country's interest. And it's not a good situation. But back to left and right, I think as far as the left and the right go, like the first Democrat, right, was Andrew Jackson, who fought Indians, owned slaves. The one good thing he did, I think he was great just for this one thing. He ended the Federal Reserve of his time, which is like amazing. But yeah, of course, everyone back then had their own flaws, and they were stuck in the thinking of the time. The Indian savages and all that, and slavery was good, and you can't fault them for everything they did. They didn't know any better. But I'm not saying slavery is good or that it should be forgiven, but all the founders had their flaws. All the older presidents had their flaws, but he was the first Democrat.
I'd say they were all rich.
Oh,
they were all rich too. If you weren't rich, you didn't have slaves or land.
Yeah.
So you had to be rich to even have any of that.
Yeah. It used to be that you had to be rich to become the president. Now you become the president to become rich afterwards, right? That's kind of how it goes now. Like, Obama was not a rich guy before he was president, and then he became president. Now he's worth over $100 million. Pelosi, I'm pointing out people who are Democrats, but it's on both sides. Like, that's actually one of the things that I hate about Trump not really fighting to push Matt Gaetz through, because Matt Gaetz is one guy who called out people on both sides for that kind of corruption, their financial corruption, and he would have been great as an attorney general, but he's not going to be it anymore. But yeah, like, back in the day, okay, so Jackson was the first Democrat. Then tension started rising. Eventually, Lincoln forms the Republican Party, which did a lot to hurt state rights because he federalized a lot of stuff. He instituted the Insurrection Act, and he basically started a war to stop the states from seceding. Now, granted, we got good stuff out of that, and that slavery was ended and all that, but they've kind of flipped on that, because now it's the left that wants to use federal power to control states and force states to do things that they don't want. It's the left that's like all down for taking people's rights, when it used to be that the left was all about preserving free speech. When, like, back in the pornography, the movies, the music, the video games, it was the left fighting for that kind of expression, and the right was like the religious right. This was like 70s, 80s, and now it's kind of flipped, where it's the left trying to censor people online because they say words they don't like, or whatever the case may be, have ideas they don't like, they want to thought police. And you have the right, who now is fighting for free speech. I think a lot of the right, not all the right, but I think there's still a good amount of like religious right-wing people who would be down for like some kind of anti-blasphemy laws. But the one side that I'm worried about taking away free speech is not the right, whereas before it was the opposite.
Yeah, I've seen an interview recently where they interviewed a female baby boomer. So she's 65, or maybe older. And she said, back when she was younger, in the 70s, in the late 70s, early 70s, they all protested, and they were protesting for this free speech. They were burning their bras to have this freedom, and they were doing these things that they weren't allowed to have. And now they've got all these things, and then but they're trying to make it the way that there's other select group wants to be. And they're like, and these people are like, we've been lifelong Democrats. This is what we grew up with. We grew up with these values that we love our country, we love our fellow man, and we want to be able to do what we want and be left alone. But now the people that say that we were representing them, they're not like that anymore. They're not who we wanted them to be. And that's why you got people like Elon Musk switching over, RFK. I think it's great that RFK is in there because he's somebody that if you're a Democrat, you love him, right? And that's why I like him there. Is he an infiltrator? Is he like, he's like, you know what, watch this. I'm going to pull the best one over. I'm a Democrat and I'm going to roll through here with Trump and claim Republican.
It's kind of funny because it seems like Trump has picked, I mean, I jokingly say his whole cabinet is Democrats. It's not, but he has pulled a lot of Democrats over. RFK, it's kind of crazy because you would think he's a guy he's a Kennedy. Like if there's any name in left-wing politics that has any kind of like, almost like a dynasty, it's Kennedy, right? But the left hated him so much, they just wanted nothing to do with him because, God forbid, he was against the vaccine because the left used to be the party of anti-vax, right? But then
any guy that talks that rough, I'm going to believe him on what not to put in my body. Something happened to his vocal cords.
You know, he's a very fit guy. He obviously cares about his health. He's fought a lot of these companies. You know, he was a lawyer. He fought against a lot of the poisons in the water and in the food supply. So I think Trump did put him in the exact right spot to be in, but it's just, you know, he'll never be a Republican. I'm not a Republican. I'm a libertarian, but he, at least on the health stuff, I like where Trump put him. I do not trust him beyond that though, because he would, if you gave him free reign, he would do a whole lot of damage. Like he was pro reparations. He was, you know, he's a big environmental guy, so he would try to probably shut down gasoline. He said he came around on guns, but before that, like, which was not too long ago, he was a register every gun kind of guy, which I'm not for.
He did make a joke. Trump did make a joke to him and said, you know, you stay off the oil because I'm getting that American oil. He told him that. So I like that about that conversation. But
yeah.
Oh, and you did mention another point. Let's go over. I personally, I grew up a Democrat, and I'd say definitely switched to knowing I wasn't a Democrat the first time Trump ran. But you mentioned you're a libertarian. So how did becoming a libertarian start? How did you decide you were a libertarian, first of all? And how did the Libertarian Party start?
No, I'm not from the Libertarian. I'm definitely not a member of the Libertarian Party. That is a joke of a party. You know, you have the guy who ran this last time was like some super woke. The last two times actually were like some super woke candidates. So you have some quote unquote libertarians who are kind of far left in their social views. And they want open borders and all that. I'm more of a Ron Paul kind of libertarian. Like I like the ideology from the right perspective, you know, like the further ANCAP, minarchist. I would say I'm more of a minarchist, which means like government has a very small role to play, like protecting our borders, ensuring the Constitution stays the Constitution, stuff like that. Outside of that, I don't really feel like government has any kind of role. But I think it just started when I was young. My mom never really talked about politics. My dad even though he was not an American citizen, he never wanted to be because he wanted to go back to Cuba one day. He was always more like independent, right? Like he was definitely not a Democrat, because Cubans rarely are, at least the ones that came from the old days, right? Because they fought communism. They left because of communism. So anything that even remotely looks like government handouts, government trying to buy people's votes, they're typically not for it. But my dad was always more independent, right? So his family liked Bush, and Reagan. I think my dad liked Reagan. I'm not sure. I was a little too young back then, but he was always more independent. He liked Ross Perot. I watched all those Ross Perot debates, even though I was really young, and he was always the only one that made sense to me. And like Jesse Ventura, my dad really liked, and I was just kind of like, I don't like either party really. And then I would say like early 2000s, I started getting more interested in politics. I still thought both sides were kind of dumb. And then I started watching a lot of like internet media, a lot of Alex Jones. And Alex Jones always had Ron Paul on his show. And that's where it started. It's like he was the only guy that made sense to me. And then
I remember when. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, I basically the first 2 or 3 elections I voted, I wrote in Ron Paul. I didn't vote on any of the other people. I just wrote in Ron Paul for president, and then when Trump came along, he was not necessarily spouting, libertarian ideals, some stuff for sure, but he was also saying a lot of common sense things like, we can't have an open border or we don't have a country, which is like, it makes perfect sense. Me being from Miami, there's illegal immigrants all over the place, and they're the reasons that jobs don't pay down here. And so I've been around it. I've seen it. I know the damage that it does. And so that made a lot of sense to me. And then he was, lower taxes. He was just a straight shooter. That's why I liked him. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I remember when Ross Perot ran. He was, oil tycoon, had millions, billions of dollars, and he spent tons of money, $200 million of his money. It was like the most money anybody ever spent, and he came up with it all out of his own pocket. And the other two sides hated him so much that they had the news, like they had different networks wouldn't play him. They paid people not to play his shit, and then they just shut him down on stage. And they made fun of his big ears too, but who cares?
Yeah,
he does have big ears.
Yeah, he did. He was an interesting case because obviously he's a businessman, so like his economic policy, it was a little bit protectionist because he was, the right wing at the time went to this whole like no tariffs, free trade all across the world, shipping jobs everywhere, but both sides were all for the shipping jobs. And that was like the big thing he ran on. So he was a little protectionist in the sense that he didn't want to have all of our jobs leave. He was trying to protect against that. And
NAFTA, North American Trade Agreement.
Yeah, that and the WTO. And so but I remember he was buying ad space, making these long presentations. His polling was like, he was the one polling the highest at the time. And then, according to him, they threatened his daughter. I don't remember if they threatened her life or if they threatened to release compromising stuff about her, something about his daughter, and he dropped out. And then he did come back towards the end of the race, but his polling never recovered. But he was polling close to 40%, which for a third party is unheard of. It's never happened before that. Well, I can't say never, but not in our modern era. It hasn't. And
I don't really remember that he was running. I didn't know if he was going up against Clinton after that scandal or if it was before that. If he was after Bush senior.
He ran twice. The first one, I believe, was against Bush and Clinton. The Republicans always blame him for taking the votes away from Bush, that he needed to beat Clinton. And then he ran, it was Clinton and was it Bob Dole? I think it was Bob Dole.
Bob Dole, 94. Dole
Yeah.
and Kemp.
So he ran in those two races, and in the second one he didn't. He did still pull enough votes to make. I mean, at that time I didn't care. I wasn't voting anyway. I wasn't old enough, but I just none of those other than Perot, none of those candidates seemed genuine anyway. So I didn't care. They were, as far as I'm concerned, they were all corrupt anyway. But yeah, and that's kind of just how I came to my
And they
political
still
position.
are.
Yeah,
They still
of
are
course.
corrupt. And that's why Trump, some pompous asshole from television like Ronald Reagan, was able to become president. People were just sick of all the other stuff. Ronald Reagan was a straight shooter too. He'll tell you that there's just as many crooks in the government as there is in Hollywood.
Yep.
He was kind of a straight shooter.
Yeah, I feel, I mean, I do like Trump. I do worry also just because he has a trust from the people that like him so much that even when he does things that are obviously bad, like, for instance, the lockdowns. I'm not saying he was responsible for the lockdowns lasting as long as they did, but he was the first one to say, we need to shut down for 2 weeks. And I knew, because I'm a paranoid fuck, I knew that was going to be the reason that the states were going to say, nope, we're staying locked down. Because when people get power, they don't want to let it go. Ever. Yep. In the history of the world.
It didn't just stop there. That same power trip trickled all the way down to Karens running up to people and saying, you can't do this and you can't do that. And it was just a trickle down effect that made the whole world assholes.
Yep. Every single one of them. It was, I was laughing at people the whole time. It was just kind of a hilarious time to be around. Everyone was like super paranoid. I was actively going out every day, trying to touch things, trying to catch the damn thing and just be done with it. But you had people who were like ordering Uber Eats and like washing their bags and sanitizing their bags and wearing a mask all
after they got Uber Eats, just coughed all over it, or whatever. Like somebody else cooked it.
It's funny because I live in South Florida. I drive Uber, and so after I would say like the first 6 months or so, you had a lot of people who were just like cabin fever, and we were finally like kind of open again. So you'd have all these people from like the blue states, obvious liberals, who were like paranoid as fuck, but they were coming out of a club, where it's shoulder to shoulder, and then like coming into the car, don't want to wear a mask. I don't care because I'm not one of those, but then they're like, oh my God, we're going to get COVID. It's like, if you're that scared of it, why did you go into a packed club? Why didn't you stay locked in your house like a good little sheep? But you had a lot of, Rogan said it best, I think. He said, we lost a lot of people during COVID and none of them are dead.
They're still gone.
I've seen it now twice. A guy on a motorcycle with his mask on and no helmet on in South Florida, where like the drivers are crazy. I don't get it at all. I think, people really just, there were a lot of people who were teetering on the edge of sanity, barely making it. And the isolation and the propaganda, the fear mongering really just pushed a lot of people past the edge. I think we lost a lot of people. But yeah,
there's still people that wear masks. Still, my dad wears a mask. I took him to Secretary of State the other day, and he's the only guy in Secretary of State with the mask on, and he's really worried about getting sick and taking it back home to his wife. So I said, okay, if you're that worried about it, I won't make fun of you, but it does look goofy.
Yeah, it is goofy. I still see people alone in their car with their masks on, and it's like, like if you're an older person or you have like some kind of immune issue or whatever, and you want to wear your mask on at the store, I don't care. But when you're alone in your car, come on, really?
Time for the mask to come off.
Yeah, come on. You can't be that.
My daughter calls My daughter calls those people window lickers. They wear the mask so they don't lick the window.
Yeah, definitely. It's yeah,
I think
yeah,
they may be
definitely.
retarded.
Yeah. Oh no, they definitely are. They most certainly are. That's why they lick the windows. But but back to Trump. Like, what worries me about Trump is that he has a very fanatic user base. Which, I mean, I really like him. I think he's hilarious. I post about him all the time because it's funny, right? But if he does some bad stuff, I'm not gonna be like, oh, he's still doing good. You know, people cope so hard with him. And it worries me because it means that when he's doing bad things, you know, there's the half of the country that's going to yell at the top of their lungs no matter what he does just because he's a Republican. So no one's going to take them seriously. But there's going to be no one really from the right, or I mean, there'll be some. I'll definitely be one of them, but who are going to say, hey, wait a minute. Why are we okay with him doing this? You know, that really worries me about him. It's not that I think he's going to be some fascist Nazi and start hauling people off to concentration. That's not a worry. But, you know, he did ban bump stocks. Not that I care about bump stocks so much, but any infringement is infringement, right?
I didn't have a problem with the bump stocks. I owned one at the time, right when he banned them, and I got rid of it right away. Another guy wanted it back because it was banned, and he got all excited for it. I got rid of it. I didn't want it. I didn't need it. It wasn't that great. It wasn't any different than putting your thumb around your belt loop and pulling forward. It's a little bit another way to make it go full auto. But yeah, I didn't have a problem with that. After I want to say it was a fake massacre in Vegas. I want to say it was a government set up to kill one person, and they ended up whacking a bunch of people, so you didn't know who the real target was. That's my firm belief on the Stephen Paddock or whatever his name was. I believe it was Stephen Paddock, or is he a different guy?
I don't
The
remember
guy
his
that was,
name, but I know who you're talking
yeah,
about. I mean, he somehow managed to sneak duffel bags and duffel bags full of fully automatic weapons up into a room
well,
in
that's not a
Vegas.
problem. That's not a problem. I've been to Vegas plenty of times, and you can get guns all through there. No problem. It would take you a few trips, but you can get your guns into Vegas. I mean, I've taken my pistol into Vegas. I go into the hotel, I check in. I always carry a pistol with me when I drive to Vegas.
Yeah.
When I fly, I don't carry it so much, but you can't go through the casino floor with it. Things like that, but
Well,
you
Nevada's
can check into the hotel with it.
pretty gun friendly. I mean, they're not the most gun friendly state, but I know they're not like a completely anti-gun state either. And as far as the bump stock ban, I could care less about bump stocks. If I want a fully automatic weapon, I'll shave the damn hammer. You know, I'll shave the thing my damn self. Uh, that wasn't the point, though. The point is just an infringement is an infringement. And since it happened from a Republican, the right turns a blind eye for the most part and just says, oh, well, who cares? No one cares about bump stocks. It's not about the bump stock. It's about the taking the right away for me.
Well, they did the same thing whenever the AK was brought into California. I forget, in the 80s they had a bunch of AKs they brought in. It was your modified AK, your Mac 90s. So I guess it was 1990 when they brought these AKs in, and they modified them. They had to cut the scope up, the hard rifle sights off the top, and they sold a bunch of used AKs. That's how they came up with the Mac 90s.
Yeah.
But that's the government putting limitations. I was okay with that limitation. I didn't even know it was Trump that imposed that. I thought it was because of the murders out there in Vegas.
Well,
but
it was.
I can understand your point.
Go ahead.
I understand your point with where you get a lot of fanatics that are just, we'll say, take it to that whole nother level, that they're all in for Trump, that they hate everything so much that Trump's their whole lifestyle and that's what they're about. So whatever he does, he could do no wrong in their eyes. So that is kind of a problem. That's the people that are the extremists on both sides of the fence that everybody really doesn't want to be like, in my opinion.
I agree. But yeah, like the bump stock thing, he did do it because of the Vegas. He was getting pressured by the left to, you have to do something. So many people died in the country music concert. So that was the thing that made that legislation happen. And then the Supreme Court shot it down, thankfully, because of his appointments. But it's just, I don't like, there's a few things that I'm very 100% on. Gun rights is one of them. Taxes is another one. There's a couple. Immigration, I'm very hardline on immigration. But yeah, I just, getting back to the topic of the video, Trump, they've branded him as this far right guy, right? Okay, well, what is far right even? What is right? What is left these days? Do you mean economically? Well, economically, I'm as far to the right as it goes. I don't want any kind of regulation whatsoever. Is that what they mean when they say far right? No. What do they mean, Nazis? Because those people were socialists. Like, if you look at their monetary policy, they were socialists. They were just like socialism for white Germans, basically, but that's what they were. You look at, but are they talking culturally, like socially, that he's far right because he's like some super conservative? Well, I mean, the guy is the first president to enter office being okay with gay marriage, like on either side. He said he would let transgenders use his bathroom in Trump Tower. He fought Palm Beach County so that Jews and black people could go to his golf club. So where is the far right tendency that they keep talking about? It's just the boogeyman they've made. And then what is the left, right? Like, the left is supposed to be fighting for your rights, but they're really only fighting for taking more of your tax money to give it to other people, is what it seems. I don't see them fighting for any actual rights unless it's abortion maybe. But that's a whole other sticky subject. It's like, I have a more nuanced take on abortion anyway than most people. I think up to a certain point it's fine, and then after that it's kind of like murdery a little bit. But on that issue, it's like you have the right who wants to abolish it completely, and then the left who wants it free and clear until the moment of birth. And Trump is like, just let the states deal with it. That's not very far right, to be honest.
No, and that goes back to your point where you wanted the federal government to just be on the outside and protect our country, and allow these states to completely take care of their infrastructure and their get the bonus money from the government put in taxes. How do you feel about the tariffs? Because I don't want to get off topic too much, but I am interested in how these tariffs are going to play out that Trump wants to introduce. Going back to that North American Free Trade Agreement, is he going to impose these tariffs on Canada and Mexico, the places that have just they've invested in since the 90s, billions of dollars into putting factories into their countries to have underpaid laborers sell us our own products that we could have been producing here. And I think that's what Trump really needs to turn around, just get rid of NAFTA.
Well, firsthand, just because of where you're from, Detroit was like the Motor City. All American cars were made there. Even I think Toyotas were made there. All these companies built factories in Mexico. I don't know I'm sure there's still some companies in Detroit. I've heard that some have gone back. I don't know exactly. Maybe you can elaborate.
Toyota.
Okay.
Toyota.
So the Japanese one.
Yeah.
That's great.
Toyota's brought them back in the United States.
But yeah, so like a lot of these companies are making them in Mexico, which is why they're our biggest trade partner, because they're selling us our own cars, basically. And yeah, I'm pro tariff. The whole country, until 1913, there used to be no income tax at all. If you worked, you kept 100% of your check. The only taxes, there was a very, very low corporate tax. And then if you were a multinational corporation, which back then there weren't many, Now it's like they're all multinational corporations almost. And if you were importing stuff, there was a big tariff because it promoted buy American, American steel, American oil, make products in America, buy American. American is good quality, made by workers who are getting paid a fair wage, and that's why it's more expensive. And yeah, I think tariffs make sense. They always have. That was what Ron Paul that was what he promoted, and when Trump came in the very first time in 2016, one of the things he said is, I'm going to tariff China because they play games with their monetary policy and we get screwed. So yeah, I'm pro tariff. I mean, yeah, it's going to suck, Timu and all these other companies, they're going to be eating it, but we got to make stuff here. We need jobs that are good, that they say, oh, we bring in immigrants because no one wants to do these low-paying, menial jobs. Well, the only reason that they can be low-paying and menial is because we have all this illegal labor. If not, they would have to raise their rates to compete.
Yeah, we've made them low-paying, meager, and we've made them those jobs.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've said it. I worked in the marijuana industry, and I can tell you, white people will line up for blocks to get a job on a farm that pays $20 an hour. I promise you, because I've seen it with my own eyes. Picking buds. White people will pick buds for $20 an hour.
White people will get out in the fields and pick them buds.
Yes, they will. They most certainly will. And, it's because we have all these illegal migrants, criminal illegal aliens, I should say, that they don't have to pay the people that.
That's something that really blows my mind. These people they broke a law to get here. They're illegal, but it's okay. It's okay. Here's some money. Here, we'll get you. We'll turn you into a citizen.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous.
I don't understand it. Like you do things the right way. You put an application in here and come on over. What skill do you have? Come on over. Do their job. We need people to work at a decent wage that know what the fuck they're doing. Excuse my language. I might have to edit that out.
Good. You're good. I mean, come on. We've already said retard on here.
No, I did say the R word.
Yeah, I don't care. It's all good, man. I try to stay clean, just at least for the first 5 minutes, but after that, it's all good. I don't really care. It's just so YouTube doesn't. Not that I have a billion viewers, but YouTube cares about the first 5 minutes for some reason. So I try to stay clean at least for the first 5, but we're well beyond that. But yeah, no, I'm pretty anti-immigration altogether. For the most part, I think the only immigrants we should take are high-skilled people. Not that I want high-skilled people to come take American jobs if we have the Americans to qualify, but there's some very specific, very, like certain, for instance, certain type of surgeries that only a very few people know how to do, or certain types of engineers, very specified fields that there just aren't a lot of people. Like those kinds of immigrants, yes, bring them. Immigrants who are business people who are coming with money to start businesses, bring them. Outside of that, no. The low-skilled labor workers, like, we need those jobs. The only people you hurt with when you bring in immigrants to take those jobs is the people who are already hurting.
Yeah, the lower income people and the lower educated people that still need a job. They're willing to get up in the morning and work, but they just can't make ends meet. And you see that with a lot. You can't rent a house or you can't rent an apartment for $1,000 a month.
No,
and
it doesn't exist.
If you go get a job, you're taking home $275, $350 a week from your mediocre job, and that's your take home after working 40 hours.
Yep.
You just can't afford. You can't afford a place to live and food and a car to get there. I mean, even if you eliminate the vehicle out of the aspect, you just can't afford food and a place to live on an income. So why even work? Why even go to work?
Yep. No, so that's another this topic actually, believe it or not, outlines another thing that's changed over time as far as like tariffs, right? Protectionism, that's considered a left-wing thing now. But back in the day, that's how we made our money. And if we did tariffs instead of charging people income tax, then that's very right wing economically because you're leaving people with their taxes in their bank account. Whereas the right wing now, the quote unquote right wing, they've moved from this, hey, we kind of do need to keep jobs here. We do like the free trade. We do like migrants coming in to work cheaply for donor businesses. But they've moved from on the face kind of pretending like they wanted to protect American businesses to where now they're just all for this whole free trade garbage that really only hurts us. It doesn't hurt any of the other countries because they're the ones making all the goods that we're buying.
Yeah, yeah. The countries that don't have running water and plumbing with it, you can drink the water out of the tap, those countries that are producing our goods.
Yeah, those countries that they use their bare hands to clean themselves. Yep, those.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's bad. That this whole left right thing, it's like I was saying, none of it really makes sense. It just doesn't. Like the left used to be about the little guy, standing up for the little guy, the person who's having trouble, struggling, the working class. But they're all just, now they brag about, oh, all the college educated people, all the billionaires, they're behind us. Why, they've become the elite people they used to claim to hate.
What do you see the future becoming? We go in cycles. There's going to be times where you have Republicans, Democrats that, we can't always stay at that cycle. As you say, they flip-flopped in the 1800s, the mid-1800s. You end up with this flip-flop to where Democrats became Republicans and Republicans became Democrats right after the Civil War. What do you think? Something's got to change. What's the timeline on this? I mean, I'm so relieved, honestly, that Trump became the president because I felt like we were going to have a fall of democracy if the Democrats did what we did, which is control the House, the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. So if they did that this term, I feel like it would have been the crash of the world as we know it.
Oh, it definitely would have been. I mean, you had not just Kamala Harris who was talking about this, but former Secretary of State John Kerry and a couple of others who were basically saying things like the Constitution is a relic of the past, the First Amendment is an obstacle to our ability to govern because it allows people to spread misinformation. The Biden administration early on was trying to form, literally it was called the Ministry of Truth, which was going to be an organization, a government, an unofficial, not like the cabinet, but just like how Trump is setting up the Department of Government Efficiency with Elon. It's not really it's an advisory board kind of deal position. But they were going to set up a thing like that to go online and try to quote unquote debunk the inconvenient truths that they didn't like. They've been talking about that. That was ultimately this third time around. I was very hesitant to vote for Trump because I didn't like his vice president pick. He seemed like he was not mentally slow, but he just didn't have the same energy. He was just like lazy Trump. And I didn't see it, like I didn't see the same guy. And so I was very hesitant to vote for him. But the thing that really pushed me over the edge on it was when I saw these videos of these Democrats straight up just saying, no, the First Amendment, that's kind of garbage. We need to kind of get rid of that. And that's another one of my hard lines,
Yeah. What's the future though? I mean, we had one of two extremely different ways could have happened. And in 4 years, it's going to be that same struggle again. So our whole entire planet really needs to get on board with what they need to do in life and what they want to do, and decide, you know, eliminate Democrat, Republican out of their minds. I mean, that's what they need to do, or at least define these terms and say, this is, we hold these truths to be self-evident, right? You
Yeah,
know,
nothing is
stand for
self-evident
something or
anymore.
stand for nothing. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I think honestly, the way it's going, and I think this election kind of proved that, right? I worry because they're gonna try to sabotage Trump and his agenda. They're already trying to get us into a war, which if they get us into a war with Russia, it will be very hard for Trump to govern the way he wants to. Keeping us out of wars is like one of his big things. It's like kind of his thing. But it'll make it very hard for him to govern the way he wants to. Wars are always bad for the economy also. Basically, we were on a path before Trump got elected that I felt like, and I honestly thought that Trump couldn't turn it around. And then he started saying all the things he was saying, where he's like, I want to lower taxes on everything, basically. He was like, no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtimes, tax deductions for car interest payments. I think we need to lower the maximum credit to like 10% interest. He started saying a bunch of things. It's like, okay, if he actually gets half of this stuff done, and he even floated around completely eliminating the income tax altogether. I was saying if he even manages to get half of this done, he might legit actually, turn the economy around where it's not just going to collapse, because I was pretty sure it was going to collapse no matter who got in. But then he started saying all that, and I was like, okay, maybe not. But they're going to try to get us into war. If they get us into war, I think it's done. I think that this election, though, showed us that it's not really about left or right, Democrat or Republican, because you look at Trump and everyone he surrounded himself with, it's like you had Trump, you had J.D. Vance, who just a couple years ago called Trump Hitler, basically. You had Vivek Ramaswamy, young guy, brilliant, and then you have a lot of Democrats. And the thing that I see is that the real divide has always been libertarian versus authoritarian. Are you more for letting people kind of live and let live and do their thing and staying off of their back so that they can advance? Or are you trying to control everything top down? And now the Democrats, while they used to be the quote unquote liberal party, and I always like to get on people because, yeah, everyone likes to make fun of the dumb libtards, right? But like, those people aren't liberal. I'm a libertarian. I'm very liberal socially. I think as long as you're not out in public, doing stuff. If you're in your home, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. As long as you're an adult and you're not abusing anyone that isn't. But the Democrats went from being liberals to being like top-down control leftists. So I always get on people's case when they like to say liberal this, liberal that, liberals are stupid. It's like, wait, do you smoke weed? Oh, you do. Okay, well, do you like being able to say whatever you like? Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you're kind of a liberal too. Um, that's these labels are just dumb. None of it makes sense.
And that's programming. Again, that's programming to the past 150 years of left wing, right wing, Democrat, Republican. They're programmed to not even accept the terminology libertarian. And think about it. So, is libertarian the new Republican?
Is
it the new Democrat?
It definitely seems like the Republican Party is finally moving in a more libertarian direction. I mean, obviously, there's still all the rhinos. There's still Mitch McConnell and all these other horrible like establishment Republicans who are basically the uniparty with the majority of the Democrats, and they pretty much all kind of agree on a lot of the same things, and they just are terrible. They just want war and to enrich themselves and screw everything else. but you have a wing of Republicans now who are more libertarian in nature, like your Thomas Massey's, your Donald Trump sort of, Rand Paul, a lot of Matt Gaetz, and they're, I think, gonna be the future of I think the future is definitely gonna shift to where the Republicans are gonna be more libertarian, and if the Democrats don't wanna completely be like eliminated, if Donald Trump can even get us a little bit of a reprieve from the economic hardships we've had over the last 4 years, it's going to be a big boost to the Republican Party. And if they continue to shift more libertarian, that would be a good thing. And if the Democrats don't make some major change, they're not going to be around much longer. Some third party will take over for them. I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah. I guess it'd be more when we start getting people that listen to Metallica or listen to Bone Thugs and Harmony. When they get into the White House, then you're going to have some. Except Obama, he didn't really listen to Bone Thugs and Harmony.
No, I don't think so.
He did fist pump to Eminem talking about some dirty stuff during his presidential dinner he had.
I always thought he was more of a Bee Gees kind of guy myself, but you know, you can make whatever inferences. You can make whatever inferences of that you want, but yeah, I mean, I think we're already kind of there. I don't know if you saw, I don't know how much you watched Joe Rogan. I don't watch him as much as I used to, but I saw when the guy who had the big lurch looking guy who had the stroke and he basically couldn't talk for a while.
Yeah, Fetterman.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I felt so bad. Fetterman was crying, talking about how he wanted to kill himself.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan had him crying, and I'm like, this guy is a representation. And a lot of people like Fetterman. I don't know. I kind of like Fetterman, but I kind of don't. I was like,
yeah,
so,
I mean,
yeah, he had Fetterman on there.
But he was talking. He loves Metallica. He was like,
oh, there you go,
talking about how he loves Metallica and a lot. He mentioned a couple other like 80s kind of bands and stuff. We're pretty much there. The other problem is, you know, us Gen Xers, we kind of we don't want to deal with that bullshit. We don't want to be the people in power. So it's going to skip, you know, the boomers are holding power as long as they can. And eventually it's going to be like millennials and beyond. And I think I don't know if there'll ever be a Gen X president, to be honest. Maybe, but probably not.
That is a good observation, because we're very opinionated, but we don't want to like actually take the wheel.
Yeah, we're the original slackers, you know? We don't give a fuck. We just want to complain and bitch about stuff. And we don't want the responsibility. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, though. I think the Democrats definitely, if they don't seriously, like, one, find new people to be the next, you know, the next batch of hopefuls, and two, like, start realizing, hey, this gender ideology and you know, DEI, race is everything, sexuality is everything. Those are the only important characteristics that matter. If they don't start realizing that people are fed up with that shit, and especially in a time when people can barely afford to get by, we don't care. I literally don't care. I just want to know that I have money for my next meal. Until they realize that that's more important, they're not going to do well. And I wonder, because there's influencers on the, you know, like, online talking heads, and they're saying, no, the Democrats don't have to learn anything. People are just retarded. The MAGA is a cult, and they think that they didn't do anything wrong. The campaign they ran was just perfectly fine, and the people are just stupid. That's not the case. The people were struggling.
Yeah, there's a lot of people struggling, and you know, when you just, you know, as my life progressed, myself, I'm doing, you know, you start out as a young man and you start going up in this upward ramp, and then I'm at the peak of my life. I'm doing great. I got a great job. I've got a great family, and I got a great house. And I'm looking at everything, and I've got great equity into my house. And I started looking at it. I'm like, well, shit. If I replace my house, well, I got to spend the same money 3 times as much to replace my house. It'd put me more farther in debt if I replace my house with all the equity I have. So I don't understand where I'm going to make it. Where I was doing so great, I'm not doing that great now. I need to reanalyze. Hey, can I really afford the vacation I used to take was $2,500? Well, it's now 5,000 or 6,000. Am I going to go take that vacation now? Probably not. I'm definitely not taking 2 or 3 of them a year. I might take one. So this is the first year out of several, and I'm doing great, like I said. But this is the first year out of several. I'm not taking a vacation, and
Oh, wow.
I'm thinking, why? I'm like, well, I really just don't want to go spend the money to go somewhere else. It's really, really expensive. I've priced out a few different trips, but the same trips I used to take are now double, triple. And the same thing with anything, the cost of living. And so what I'm saying is I should be doing way better. But over the past 6 years or so, I'm not, even though I am. If that makes sense. My incomes went up substantially. You know, my value is went up substantially. But the things I spent, what, $500 on groceries last week? When I was a kid, I'd be hard pressed to spend $150 and be able to fit it all in my cart. So things are changing big time, big time.
Oh yeah, no, it's gotten really rough, and it's the rich are getting richer, and everyone else is getting squeezed down into lower categories. You know, if you make $100,000 a year, that used to be like, whoa, 100,000 is a lot. They used to say, I don't know if they still say it, but the phrase is once you pass 75,000 is kind of like the sweet spot. That like once you go past that, it's not much different. Your life doesn't change too much until you get to way higher. But you know, $100,000 now, it's like you can barely make it in any metropolitan area. That's like the bare minimum you need just to survive. 50,000 used to be a decent salary, and now it's like 50,000. Half of that goes to rent almost, and it's just difficult. You know, you can't really make it anymore. So yeah, it's not that you're not doing better. You're not doing better. The numbers went up, but the numbers are worth less. You know.
Yeah. That's it in a nutshell.
Inflation got us all. Inflation is making the value of what we're making just go way down. And so even if you're, you know, let's say back in the day you were making 75,000, well now to make that same 75,000, you got to be making like close to 200 to really feel the same, almost 150 to 200. And even at 150,000 a year, you probably can't afford to buy a house in any kind of, you know, unless you live out in the woods somewhere. But if you live out in the woods somewhere, you're probably not making 150,000 because there aren't jobs that pay that out there. So if you make 150,000, you can't buy a house. In South Florida, a condo, you could buy a condo for like 250-ish, you know, in a good area, really good area. But then they're going to hit you with the association fee, which minimum are $1,000 a month. So the money you saved, you didn't really save, and you can't really afford it. It's bad all over. Like houses down here, you're looking at 600,000 and up for most places, and the ones that aren't that price, they have major issues, and the banks won't even loan money for those kinds of houses. Like my buddy just hit me up the other day, and he's like looking at a house, and he's like, the roof is bad, it needs to be redone, and the bank won't lend the money because they're not loaning money for project houses. Only it has to be like ready to live in. So people,
you'll run across that a lot. You'll run across that a lot, especially if it's their primary residence. Now, if they're going to use it as a secondary investment, then sometimes they'll get that loan. Yeah. But they know that you're not going to have another 50,000 to go put a roof on your house or whatever the amount's going to cost, or you'll have to go take that loan out again, which, you know, getting a loan after you get a loan is very difficult.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially for a house, especially when you're looking at $400,000.
But like you were saying with Trump, this would be kind of an okay idea. But like you're saying, Trump eliminates the credit cards right now are 30%.
Oh yeah,
They
and
could drop down. They could drop down to 10%. That saves Americans enough money to catch back up on their bills if they're behind. If a lot of people got behind during Corona and haven't caught up yet, so that would be able to allow them to catch up. And maybe if the government was to do another savings bond type thing, maybe lock up a 10-year CD. Say, okay, we're going to offer a 10-year CD, and we're going to do a profit share. So we're going to split at the end of the 10 years, you get half, and then they get half, and then they could take that and pay their debt off with it. So they can go pay their debt with a chunk of money that the Americans want to invest back in to their 401k. They call it a government 401k.
Yeah.
Government investment bond.
Well, it used to be that bonds were worthwhile, but now they don't even keep up with the rate of inflation. And another thing, if he was somehow able to not allow the credit cards to go beyond 10%, that would also have kind of like a side effect of lowering inflation, because instead of 30% being printed out of nowhere, basically, it's 10%. Now, what they really need to do is just end the Federal Reserve and take back control of the money supply. That'll never happen. They'll assassinate everyone who attempts to do that. It's like not ever going to happen again. Jackson did it. I don't know how he did it. But that'll never happen again. But that's really what they need to do. That the Fed just, they lied during Biden. They did everything they could to try and make his numbers look as good. They did everything they could to try and make Trump's numbers look bad. It's just terrible. The Fed is corrupt. They're only about making themselves richer because they're basically a bank, and they don't really.
That's a lot of these government departments too, though.
Yeah, so. Well, the Fed is not. They're not part of the government, though. A lot of people think they are because they're called the Federal Reserve, but they're not. They're not federal, and they have no reserves. They print money out of thin air. It's just a number in a computer. That's all made up. They don't actually, when they loan you money, they don't actually have money. The rules are, it's called fractional reserve banking. The rules are for every dollar you deposit into the bank, they can print 10. They can loan out 10. And so that's, an endless supply of money inflating that doesn't even exist yet. It's ridiculous.
That's how they did it. That's how they did it in the 1800s. All these independent banks popped up, and the independent banks were allowed to print double the money that they had on hand. So these banks were printing and selling their bank dollars and selling them for 75 cents on the dollar, and just printing them up and then keeping the extra money. There's one story, I'll share a quick story about this bank scam, but in Michigan here, there was a bunch of different banks on a path. And the one banker guy would take a week to go around the path to check that all these banks had their money in the vault like they were supposed to. Well, he liked to drink. Mm-hmm. So they'd get him drunk at each one of his stops, and they'd ride the money by horse in the middle of the night to the next town and drop it into their bank. So all the banks here in Michigan were in on it. This was 1820s. This was right at the found of Michigan, when Michigan was founded. So a lot of crooked banks.
Yeah, there always will be. There really always will be. But, also back then, if a bank didn't have money, there was no, too big to fail crap like there was in, I think it was when Obama took over that they just bailed out all the banks in 2008. It was like the handoff from Bush to Obama. Back then, those banks would have just been forced to close, and that's it. But now, the government will be like, oh, well, we can't let all these people become unemployed and all these debtors not get their debt back, so we're going to bail them out. And who pays for that? We do.
And then we forget about it too, like Daimler, Chrysler, and Fords. We forget about buying them out, and bailing them out. I don't believe GM took that loan, but the other two of the big three did. But whatever did happen to that, the government owns a chunk of that. So where's the money going? So hopefully we get some checks and balances. Yeah.
Zelensky has a couple mansions probably somewhere stashed away. That's where all that money's going. You know,
Yeah.
they
Now,
can pay for
now I know
wars.
why. Now I know why I can't find any cocaine in my neighborhood. Zelensky.
He definitely looks like he's on it. He definitely does.
I've seen him dance.
It's so funny. Like I'm sure you've been on the internet long enough. You've seen all the funny videos from when he was like on TV, or at least some of them. And it's like the first time he came out to talk, the funny like acting voice he put on, where he's like, "We must kill the Russians." He put this fake like tough guy like caricature of what a TV guy would think a tough guy sounds like.
Yeah, like bad acting television. I've seen some of those.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. But yeah, I mean that's another difference the left and right don't have. They both love sending money overseas for wars. You know, it used to be that the left was anti-war and the right was allegedly pro-war, but I couldn't tell you any left or right president outside of Trump who didn't see a war they didn't love. And we haven't officially declared war. It's all been presidential declarations ever since World War II. That's the last time we officially declared a war. Korea wasn't officially declared. Vietnam wasn't officially declared. None of the Middle East wars have been officially declared. But both sides love them. Both sides do it. You know, where's the difference? So yeah, I think the parties that, if the Republicans continue to differentiate themselves from the middle, the establishment, they'll continue to do well. If the Democrats can find a way, I don't know if you watch a lot of online news, online people, but the Young Turks, they're like kind of like left-wing conspiracy mainstream though. They're like really big network, kind of like Alex Jones, but like less hectic. Well, I don't know. Some would say more, but I say less. I love Alex Jones, but they're they constantly say the left needs to get away from this mainstream establishment. They need to go to left-wing populism. I think if they did that, they would do a lot better. But I don't see them doing it. I don't see them getting away from the trap that is the establishment. And I think it's just, we're going to generally have part of the Republicans, or a big part of the Republicans, that are just establishment, like two wings of the same bird, the left wing, right wing paradigm, which is really just to get us all fighting against each other and arguing online and wasting all that energy. And then we're going to have the libertarian wing of the Republican Party who are actually trying to do stuff. And I don't see anything on the quote unquote left that's trying to do that. I don't see any Democrats that are really, you had AOC, she was talking a big game, and then she just did everything Nancy Pelosi wanted her to do, right? A lot of these Democrats who claim to be like, far left or democratic socialists or, any of that other stuff, they're just the same. That once the money starts rolling in from the donors, they shut up and do what they're told. So I don't see them.
I really
changing.
hope hopefully a lot of Americans wake up, and this last election really makes them wake up to their own real feelings. To seek right down inside of them and say, this, this is how I feel. And I do think a lot of people were either stuck Democrats or Republicans up until this point, honestly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and I also think the fact that a lot of Democrats left the Democratic Party and joined Trump. I mean, Elon Musk, right? He was like the darling of the left. He's the electric car guy, the environment guy, right?
Yeah.
And now the left hates him because, he's not on the left anymore because
he denounced his son's transition.
Yeah, he had the transition thing happen to him, and then he also just realized, like, I guess that pushed him to realize, wait, even, he was one of the biggest at the time, one of the biggest Twitter accounts, and he's like, even if I wanted to say something about it, I can't. They'll ban me for it. Free speech is very important, and I think that's kind of, I never liked Elon before, not because he's like the electronic car guy, but because he gets a bunch of tax subsidies, he makes a bunch of expensive cars that we can't afford to buy, and he's getting money from
Run
us
off of
to build them.
batteries.
Yeah, he's getting money off of us to build them, and then we can't afford to buy them. And then the way his company actually stays profitable is by selling green, green credits or whatever, to companies who are out polluting. So he claims to want to fix the environment, but then his company only makes money because he's doing stuff to allow other companies to continue polluting. So it just doesn't make sense to me, and I didn't like him because of all that. But I do like where he's going as far as like his stance on free speech, what he's done with Twitter. I mean, if he really buys MSNBC, that'll be the funniest thing ever. It would be great to see him put like Alex Jones as Rachel Maddow's boss. I would do anything for that to happen, just to see it for a day. But
now, did the Onion buy Alex Jones's InfoWars?
there was, so I don't know all the details exactly, but I've loosely followed it. And basically what happened is that the judge said, all right, it's all got to go to auction, because the original ruling was that Alex Jones had to pay like close to $3 trillion. Now that goes beyond what that state allows a lawsuit to be. The ruling is still there. He still technically got ruled against for like almost $3 trillion. But the largest amount that it could be, according to the states he got sued in, was $2 billion or $2.8 billion, something like that. I don't know. Some ridiculous cartoon number that no one really can ever do other than Elon. So basically they put it up for auction. There were people who were backing Alex Jones and wanted to buy it, and just basically like, okay, we bought it, we own it, but you're running the show, like basically leave him in charge. And so then the Onion came in, made an offer, and then as part of their offer, they offered things that they couldn't have offered, like money on the back end to some of the families that they can't offer because they don't own the thing yet. There was a couple of other things that were involved, but that was the main one. So basically the people that were with Alex Jones offered more money, and then the Onion people offered less money, but with some back end perks. And so they just gave it to the Onion, even though they didn't win the auction. So now the judge is like, no, this is bullshit. And so I don't know how long he's going to have it for, but he's still got InfoWars for the time being. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I think the Onion, or no, the higher offer by the people with Alex Jones was like $3.5 million. So it's not even that much. $3.5 million was what they were going to buy it for. So it's not, I mean, it's a lot of money, obviously, but it's not that much considering, the other issue with it is it's basically only worth the equipment that he owns that is going to get sold off, because Alex Jones is InfoWars. So it's like, okay, you can be InfoWars, but if you're not Alex Jones screaming about the interdimensional pedophiles, you're not going to make the Alex Jones
coming
money.
For your children.
We have the documents.
What's in your water? They're eating people.
Oh, yeah. Unless you have Alex Jones on there yelling stuff like,
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay,
then it's just not going to be InfoWars, and no one's going to give a fuck, and the company's going to die off anyway. So it's entirely pointless to even pay $3.5 million. Alex Jones already has his alternate channel on Twitter or X or whatever, and he's going to be just fine no matter what happens, because he's got a diehard fan base that's going to support him no matter where he is. So it doesn't even matter. But I mean, that's another thing. Like, look, I get it if you sue him for something, but and you can say that what he said was disgusting, whatever. He has an opinion. You can't sue someone for having an opinion, and you can't sue them for more than any pharma company who have actually killed people with their products have ever been sued for. Alex Jones did not kill anybody. Alex Jones did not tell people go to these people's houses and harass them. You can think Alex Jones is a terrible person. I don't. I fucking love the guy. You can think Alex Jones is a terrible person, but he didn't do anything other than have an opinion, which he then said, nah, I was wrong. He later said that. Before they even ever came after him, he said, yeah, no, I was wrong about that. And then they, got him for several $1 trillion.
Yeah, that's weird. He is, the only thing I can say I don't like about Alex Jones is the constant shilling of this gold at higher than really necessary prices. So he's shilling gold right now that's just a ripoff. It's like, it's probably way higher than what you can really get it for.
Yeah, they all do that. Every influencer does that. He does it a little more. And I'm sure his fans pay for it because they want to support, know. But he also has all the all the supplements and stuff and the water filters. He sells a lot of shit. But yeah,
he's selling all those supplements.
Yeah, but they do come after him all the fucking time. So he does need the money for it. They try to take him off the air. They keep on trying and failing, and he somehow gets through it. So I hope that he continues to fight. Love him or hate him, I'm on the love side, but he's a necessary voice. Even if you think he's entirely batshit crazy, he called 9/11 I think 7 months before it happened. He called the Russia war something like 7 months before it happened. He called Biden not being the candidate like a year and a half before it happened. Like, he gets a lot of really good info. Even if you think he's full of shit, he somehow keeps predicting things right. I always say if you zoom out long enough on a long enough timeline, eventually he's right about everything.
I guess if you throw so many darts at the dartboard, you're going to get some in the bullseye.
Well, it's funny, the gay frogs quote I just played, right? That's like probably his most famous one. It's a chemical called atrazine that is in the water.
Turning the frogs gay.
Yeah, well, it's not that it turns them gay. It's that if you feed it to
makes them all males, right?
Yeah, it changes their sex. So yeah, it's not turning. He says things in a way that's like wild and sounds totally batshit insane, because the things he's talking about are actually kind of batshit insane, And then Robert Kennedy was talking about that recently. I saw a video, I posted it, where it's like Kennedy talking about the atrazine in the water, and it's like cuts to pictures of Alex Jones like he's gonna say it,
I'm pretty sure frogs, I'm not exactly positive, I'm not a biologist, but I'm pretty sure frogs have the ability to be male or female depending on their surroundings.
They're amphibians, so they are, if I remember right, it's been 30 something years.
Maybe.
It has to do with temperature, I think, also, but they, as tadpoles, if I remember right, they don't have genders as tadpoles, and then they kind of, depending on the environments, they can go either way, I believe, or also, I think they can also, I could be wrong on this, but they can also change if there isn't enough of one or the other, if I remember right. Something. I'm going to have to do some research.
Frogs are hermaphrodites on the water.
But they, they also say that soy is totally healthy and fine, and it doesn't feminize men. But then there was a study in Japan that they gave it to fish or something prenatal, like as eggs. I don't know, some weird experiment, right? And they were able to convert fish with soy extract. So, I'm not touching it. I'm not doing the soy stuff.
Would they be called soy koi?
Probably. Well, it is Japan, so it might be koi. But yeah, no, I don't know. The Alex Jones thing is interesting, but they'll never shut him down. They'll shut down InfoWars, even if it's like the Onion is barely. They were funny as shit in the 90s. And then at some point I don't think they've been funny since then. And their goal was to take InfoWars and try to basically make it a mockery of Alex Jones. And okay, so what? You're mocking Alex Jones. Big deal. The guy purposely says stuff so that people can meme him, so that he can get more famous because he understands how the game works. So, okay, let's say the Onion buys InfoWars and they make the whole site just a parody of Alex Jones. Well, you're just going to make him more famous than he already is. It's all just dumb. People are stupid. And, the government is just trying to shut down free speech. That's why the summary judgment, Alex Jones didn't get an actual trial. It was a summary judgment. You have to pay this money. You're guilty. It's just a matter of how much are you guilty for. Okay, well, and then they basically said, well, we're just going to sue him for an amount that's so high that he's going to lose everything and not have a way to get his message out there. And that's what they did. But he's going to always have a way to get his message out there because Elon unbanned him. Now the only way they can stop him is to get rid of Elon.
Yeah, they're doing that to as many people as they can. Either it's Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens. All these people are getting canceled on. Even Candace Owens is getting canceled by Ben Shapiro. So she's getting canceled on her own network, and people are, same with Fox canceling Tucker. So lots of people are getting canceled when they don't like the information that's coming out of their mouth.
Yeah, I mean, Fox paid him to be their controversial guy. I think the reason that here's the thing, Tucker, alleged reason is because Dominion, the voting machine company, they sued the shit out of them. And I watched Tucker all the time. He's like the one mainstream guy that I really like. Well, he's not, I guess he's now alternative media, but at the time, he was the one mainstream guy I liked. He never said the voting machines were flipped or that they were hacked, or he invited the people who said that there was to come and show him the evidence. And none of them ever came on his show, like Sidney Powell and a couple others. Now, I don't believe that the election was the freest and fairest election, and neither does he, I don't think, based on everything he said. But he never said anything about Dominion. I think Dominion wanted him off the air and said, well, you're going to owe us a fuck ton of money, so maybe we'll make a deal where if you get rid of the people we want you to get rid of, we'll take a little bit less. And I think that's what happened. But Candace Owens is an interesting thing because, fiscally, I agree with Ben Shapiro on a lot. He's pretty libertarian economically. But then it's like any war that is for Israel, let's go do it. And I don't want any war, period, no matter who. But you kind of have to know that the guy wearing the yarmulke and the things that stick out of your shirt is going to be pro-Israel 1,010%, right? And Candace started saying a lot of things that were anti-Israel. In my opinion, not like anti-Jew or, not anti-Semitic, just anti the nation of Israel. And yeah, they canceled her for it. But I think she kind of wanted to branch off on her own, and that's why she started it, because she knew that wasn't going to fly there. And so I genuinely think that's why she did it. Or maybe it was a mutual thing where they were both like, yeah, we don't want you here anymore. You don't want to be here anymore. We can't afford you. Whatever it is. And it's like, let's just make this whole thing and both get more famous off of it. Could be that too. I don't know. But yeah, the Candace Owens thing, she didn't really get canceled because she's on making a fuck ton of money, I'm sure, right now.
Well, one big thing that's really coming out now that Elon has taken over X and he's kind of settled down a little bit with it is the point that news companies like Fox and MSNBC, and they're getting viewers. They're getting viewers, but they're not getting millions and millions and millions. They're getting a couple million viewers a night. But when people talk and have a simple podcast like you and I are talking now, they're getting millions of views, live viewers.
Yeah.
So on important subjects. So Elon Musk mentioned that he's putting the news back into the people's hands, and it's being misconstrued. It's not that the average person knows more about what's going on than the next guy, but they're able to talk about it. So you and I can talk, and then you can go talk to somebody else. And eventually we can form our own opinions and learn our own stuff. And if we want, join those groups where we can hear people talk and join those discussions.
Yeah, and also just long
I like
form.
having open discussions.
Yeah, no, definite. Also with long form dialogue, news is like a 1-minute story here, a 5-minute story here. You don't really have time to really, you get the few details they want to push out. You get a lot of spin. Half of it is spin at the very least. And then, they try to pass it off as this is the news. This is real. And that works for the boomers. It even works for some Gen Xers. But the rest of the people don't buy it anymore. If I'm watching mainstream media, it's like, okay, is it Fox? Okay, it's going to be right wing then, or semi right wing. Not really. They supported Trump after he was the nominee because they kind of have to, because they're the Republican mainstream news channel, right? But they didn't really want him to be the guy. And they didn't really want to support him. They were kind of against him the whole primary in 2015. But if it's not Fox, then I know it's going to be all left-wing spin. So it's like, you don't really get, a lot of in-depth on a topic, or just as far as like hearing a person and their thoughts and who they actually are. You just get the little 5-minute clip of them on the news. And I think people want more than just a 5-minute clip that's mostly spin, and you don't really know where the person stands. You just know what they put on the news. So I think that's why.
And then you get a commercial.
Yeah. So I think that's why the alternative media is blowing up the way it is. I think that's, Kamala went on all the mainstream shows, right? She even went on Fox for a whole 20 minutes. That was a disaster. But Trump did all the, he went on for 3 hours with 3 or 4 hours with Rogan almost. He went on for 3 hours with Theo Von, where Theo Von told him, hey, it's a shame we can't get cocaine anymore.
No, that was the vice president when I was Theo Von.
He talked to Trump about cocaine too. It was pretty fun. Both of those
Oh, he did? I
conversations were
talked to
hilarious.
Vance about it.
Yeah, he was saying that he had an addiction, a cocaine addiction, and it was hilarious. He's like, that cocaine will have you like an owl, man.
Theo Von, he's awesome. Just to take it to that next level. I didn't see the Theo Von with Trump. I did see him with Vance.
You should definitely check it out. It was really funny. But Trump went on Flagrant. He went on all these podcasts where you really got to sit down and actually hear him flesh out his ideas for hours at a time, and not just talking points, like actually hear who the guy is. It's a big difference. When Kamala went on anything, it's just like you hear the talking point. She was just like a bot program to spit out these answers and nothing else. And she just did not. Rogan even said she can come on the show and just talk about whatever she wants. I don't even care about the politics. I want to see that there's a person in there. Joe Rogan is not a right-wing Republican. He's probably never voted for a Republican in his life.
He voted for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, he voted for Bernie Sanders. The election before that, he voted Gary Johnson just because he liked him, because he came on the show. And
he voted for Obama.
Yeah, and the Democrats wouldn't even talk to him. Bernie Sanders came out and said, yeah, she should have gone on the show. I don't know if you saw that. He came out on the news. He was like, you should have gone on that show. Like, he's the biggest audience of males in the country.
Free.
Yeah.
Free advertising. Just that's a no-brainer. But they were scared that they'd completely biff. They were scared that she would get there and do what was going to happen.
She can't be off script, and even on script, she sounds terrible. So she only went on shows. The only show that she went that was even mildly combative was the Fox one. And they got there late. They were supposed to do,
They edited it.
No, the Fox one, it was live. But she got there late.
Oh, okay.
They were supposed to do, I think, an hour, and she only did 24 minutes. And he didn't even look, when Trump goes on all these, MSNBC, CNN, he goes on them and they fight him the whole time and call him Hitler and, all this made up stuff. All he did was say, hey, back in 2016, you said this. Explain to us why that's changed. And she could not handle that. They weren't nice, friendly softball questions, but it wasn't like, hey, you touched children when you were a kid or, weird made up stuff. None of it was like that.
Yeah.
And she just
You came back on fracking.
Yeah.
She came back on fracking. That I'm surprised that Pennsylvania didn't automatically flip because of that. That's their bread and butter. Of course, a lot of Pennsylvanians are against the fracking because they're getting gas in their water supply and things like that. So, which they say doesn't happen, but I've seen videos where it happens, so I don't know. I don't know who to believe.
It happens. It's one of those things where we hear about it a lot because when it happens, it's a big story, but it probably doesn't happen that often. It's kind of like, look, when we were kids, there were for sure crazy serial killers out there killing kids every weekend. We still got to go out and play because you didn't hear about it because there wasn't the internet promoting all this craziness. Now, parents will not let their kids go play at the park alone because they've been programmed by the media that everyone is a secret kidnapper, I don't think it's that it happens all the time. It does happen for sure. And I think that it's just that because it's publicized so much when it does, now we think that it happens all the time. Pennsylvania, I know because, I lived in Jersey for a bit. They are big on processing of raw oil, of crude oil. That's big business over there. So yeah, they've been hurting, I'm sure, out there. It's not good. They really need the oil production. That pipeline probably would have really helped them out too. The one that Biden shut down, that was going from Canada, but they just, there's no foresight with a lot of these politicians, or maybe there is, and they're just like, oh well, we'll profit off of all this craziness. It's probably that. It's probably more of that. But yeah. Fuck. So you got anything else on the left versus right stuff?
No. I think it's been a great conversation, especially for not being scripted and just talking about a couple of informative facts. So it's been fun.
Yeah, we get to, it's not scripted, and we get to kind of go all over the place. From tariffs to illegal immigration to left versus right, and it all kind of blends back together in the end. But yeah, it's been great. Where can people find you if they want to get your opinion?
You can find me on Twitter, Van Down by the River, or Insane One. So if you do a search on Insane One, you'll see me there on Twitter. So that's my handle there.
And just so everyone's aware, it's N, the letter N.
Yes, the letter N, CANE, and the number 1.
Yeah. Because I did not know that that's how you said that when I first saw your screen name. Just so everyone's aware.
Everybody calls me Incane. Of course, I don't have the French C, or it'd be insane, but the regular Insane One was taken. So it's just been my handle since high school. I think it was my old email address, but yeah, feel free, drop me an email, ncane1@yahoo.com.
Definitely.
So, insane1@yahoo.com.
Yeah, it's been
Give me your hate mail or opinion.
I doubt you'll get much hate mail from my audience. It's not like you're out there saying Biden is the GOAT. Yeah, anyone wants to hit him up. If not, that's cool too, I guess. If you guys want to follow me, it's Third Rail Podcast on Twitter. My Discord link is in the description, as is all of my other links, Facebook and Instagram and all that good stuff. So yeah, follow us all, and I hope to have you back on soon. We'll see. I got to get some topics together. We got a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. I'm trying to get people from all over the spectrum. So, I mean, I know you're more on the libertarian side yourself, but like liberal libertarian, weed smoking and all that. And I'm in that same boat. I mean, I don't really smoke weed anymore, but I'm not against it or anything. But yeah, I mean, I want to get people from all over, not just like I've had my Republican friends on a couple times, and I love them to death, and I'll have them again. I'm trying to get some left wing friends to come on too. I haven't had too much luck
Good
yet,
luck talking to them.
it'll
They're
happen.
rare.
I have one friend who's in California who's like, I don't want to call him a socialist. I think he does call himself a socialist, but he's more like a hippies on a farm kind of socialist and not like a, Stalin communism socialist. But yeah, he says he's gonna come
socialism
on.
worked, if socialism worked, I'd love socialism, man. I'd love it, but somebody's going to not work like the rest.
Oh, well, yeah, no, I mean, that's why I don't even like unions, to be honest, because you get a bunch of lazy fucks who get a paycheck and then you can't even advance because it's based on just strictly like the time you're there. And it's not based on the effort you put. So it's just, I don't even like unions. None of that stuff ever works. But yeah, but I mean, I'm going to get him on eventually. It's just with him, it's a, scheduling conflict. He's been kind of busy, but yeah, I'm going to be having people from all over the spectrum on here, and we'll definitely get you back on the next time. I'll run my topics by you as I come up with them, and whatever you want to talk about, we'll do. But thanks.
Great. Love to be back.
Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.